Testing in 5, 4, 3. Oh, let's change this out here. Video. Oh, I'm on it. Fine. We're good. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another commercial real estate tactical broker training, where we believe most brokers, whether it be residential or commercial, they struggle with clarifying, best practices. Also struggle with setting that big goal for the week, setting that, doing some role playing and understanding underwriting and proposals, and just really just getting, I like to get the juices flowing. And I believe everyone needs a good coach, and everyone also needs good iron to sharpen iron. And so as we get on these commercial real estate tactical broker trainings, we're talking about brokerage, we're talking about underwriting, talking about proposals, cold calling, negotiation, and really kind of what's going on in the marketplace. But mostly it's going to be hands-on, tactical, meaning we're going to be talking through this training together. I'm excited to be joined by some of the eXp mastery team. For those who know me, my name is Brett Swarts. I'm founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. I'm also an eXp commercial broker, multifamily broker, and specialize in helping people exit not using a 1031 exchange, so they can honestly sometimes double their cash flow and increase their value proposition for all of their clients, and so much more. I'm joined by two amazing eXp residential and commercial agents with me right now. We got Brent Silverbauer, multifamily specialist, Northern California. Brent, how are we doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. We also got Pierce York out of Newport Beach, and he's a commercial and luxury agent. Pierce, how you doing?
Good, man. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Let's dive right in, guys. So remember last week we covered the purpose of a cold call. We covered also the review of the purpose of the meeting, and then also the actual proposal itself. So we're gonna do a quick review of that, and then we're gonna dive into today's topic, which will be determined by your answers. Because guess what? If we're not training well, we're not learning, and there's no point in moving forward in the process with new information unless we're going to start to apply that. And this is what this call is going to be about as well. It's not just the training, but it's now setting the one big goal of the week and then reporting back on that one big goal to accomplish. And so I want you to be thinking about that. What is that one big thing, if you were to be able to accomplish this week, and or the one big habit, if you can start implementing right now this week, that can make all of the difference for you and your business and your clients. Okay. So be thinking about that. But that being said, let's do a little test. Brent, what is the purpose of a cold call?
Purpose of a cold call is to get the in-person meeting.
Purpose of the cold call is to get the in-person meeting. Pierce, why not just have the meeting over the phone, Pierce?
You don't want to get stuck in the friend zone. You also want to get their full undivided attention.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You don't get stuck in the friend zone, or, if you're the expert, if you're a doctor, Brent, and I'm calling you about my knee pain, I just twisted my knee, playing basketball over the weekend, and I heard a pop and there's some swelling and I can hardly walk. First of all, if a doctor were to cold call you about your knee pain, right, which in itself would be kind of odd, right? You go to the experts, right? Rather than experts just calling you. But that being said, if he were to cold call you, we'd talk with you, and he would have just diagnosed and do everything over the phone, how would you feel?
Yeah, I need to come into the office. I'd feel that way. For something so important, you need to meet with them face to face.
Right. And so we don't want to rush this, the expert identification cycle, if you will, or the discovery phase. In fact, we want to discover the challenges, the needs, the wants, the desires, where the client's trying to go, the B, where they're trying to be, A is where they're at. But it's hard to do that over the phone. So we don't want to do it over the phone. We want to do that in person. So the purpose of the cold call is to set the meeting. And once we set the meeting, what's the next purpose of the first meeting, Brent?
To build rapport, to get to that know, like, and trust phase, and then see if you can solve their problems or if they have problems to be solved.
What kind of, and by the way, how do you, without having to ask a bunch of questions to feel like an interrogation, right? Which honestly is kind of how I was trained before. Ask these open-ended questions and have like this whole list of questions you just keep asking and asking and asking, which can kind of feel like this person's really, trying to just extract some information so that maybe they can sell me, if they will, right? But how do you make this just kind of a great, easy rapport conversation, like what you would do with anyone else? What do you do, Brent?
Two good strategy. Well, first you got to start with an open-ended question. Tell me about your real estate journey. Tell me about what's going on. Once they start talking, the way to continue to get them to talking is identifying and labeling, or labeling and mirroring. Excuse me, labeling and mirroring.
And what's the purpose of labeling and mirroring, Brent?
So labeling, you want them to say, that's right. So you want them to say, so if they say, I have these units and I'm getting kind of tired of them. You say, it sounds like, it feels like, it seems like you're getting tired of being a hands-on operator. Is that right? And they could say, that's right. So that helps them to feel like you're on the same path, you get them, all that other stuff. And then mirroring helps them to get more information out of them. So I'm a little tired of handling these units. Handling the units? So you say curious, playful tone, handling the units? Yeah, I self-manage these. Oh, you self-manage? Yeah, I self-manage. I do everything myself. That helps them to keep talking when you mirror and label. Well, mirror mainly, and then labeling helps them to, feel like you understand them.
Exactly. Yeah. So mirroring is just, it's simply kind of repeating the last few words that someone just said in a particular sentence. Like, oh yeah, I self-manage. You might say, oh, self-manage. And because, by the way, we don't even know what that means. Right.
No.
And we don't want, and this is the biggest thing. It's actually common courtesy to not assume you understand what he means by self-manage, because self-manage could have a skill, right? It could be like literally he does everything, right? He rents the unit, he shows the unit, he turns the unit, he is the plumber, he's the electrician, he's the handyman. He puts it on Craigslist. He fills out the lease agreement. He collects the rents. I mean, there's a whole range of like, what does it mean to self-manage? It could also mean, he visits the property once every quarter, once a year. And he has it on autopilot where people are just sending the rents in via ACH online automatic payment. And he has, the number that they could call for handyman list. Like, I mean, who knows what that means, right? But the key is understanding what he's talking about when he says self-manage will help to open up more information, which again, Pierce, as a good, let's say, doctor expert in commercial real estate, what's the purpose of that? Why do you want to gather that information?
Information's power, first of all. Like knowing what the information is, what their struggles are, what their problems are, right, can help you to kind of direct the conversation to either uncover more and more, possible problems that they could have and see if your solution makes any sense, or right, if you have a plethora of different products, right, present the product that's going to solve their biggest pain point.
100%, right? Because we don't want to be pitching or solving or proposing something that doesn't even speak to their needs, right? I mean, that's really looking out for ourselves versus looking out for the client. Our goal is to uncover challenges and desires of where they want to be, right? What's frustrating them? What don't they have clarity on? What are they uncertain about? What are they trying to do? Why did they get into this thing in the first place? When they own this property, what was the main reason for owning the property? Was it financial freedom? Was it passive income? Was it they enjoyed, helping and serving community housing, right? Who knows what it might be, but the more that you can understand that, the more you can tailor your proposal or your potential solution to their exact needs and challenges, right? And so people move on two things. They move on pain and they move on pleasure, but they're actually more likely to move on pain, which is why it's really interesting when you call most people and you cold call them, are you in the market to buy or sell? A lot of them are going to say, no, not really, unless an amazing deal comes up, right? Like this amazing, pleasurable deal. If they're already in pain, they probably already have contacted you. In fact, I got a call last week from a seller. I've been talking with him for a long time, and he's got a number of assets, and the particular insurance got painful up in the Placerville, Cameron Park, kind of El Dorado County. The insurance went from about $12,000 to about $35,000. So Brent, if your NOI drops by about 30, what's it? 35 minus 15 is like 21,000. Is that right? What's
about right?
Yeah. How would you feel? Would that feel pretty painful?
Yeah, that would feel terribly painful. At a 5% cap rate, he just lost about $500,000.
You got it, right? So all of a sudden it went from, floods and fires and lots of stuff that's happened up in El Dorado County to insurance carriers going, man, we're out. Or if we're in, we've got to underwrite this a proper way. And we can no longer afford to charge insurance at these lower rates. So that's painful, right? And so guess what? He reached out to me and connecting with some insurance agents, other ones to shop the deal. I said, hey, I know Farmers tends to be one of the best, most competitive up there. They blew everyone else away. Let me know if you need a connection there, right? And if you want to talk about pricing and analysis, we can go through it and some strategy here. Now, Pierce, if someone has a adjustable rate mortgage that's fixed right now, that's going to adjust in a couple years, and it's going to go from 3.5% to about 6.5%, given today's rates, give or take. Yeah. Would that be painful, do you think, to hear or actually go through?
Those balloon payments, man. Yeah, where they come up, or you get a balloon payment, or you get an ARM that's going to adjust. Yeah, those are great. Those are great people to contact, because if that does hit, what's nice is it's not going to affect the cap rate, but it will definitely affect their net cash flow.
Yeah, and it will ultimately affect the cap rate, right? As cash flow goes lower, right? Because you have to borrow at a higher rate. Ultimately, I'm going to have to, if I'm a buyer, I'm going to have to, it's going to have to buy at a lower price. And also if I'm the bank, I'm going to have to loan it at lower dollars, right? Because it's a debt coverage ratio. But to your point, like if someone could assume that loan right now, then it doesn't affect the cap rate, right? If I can keep that loan intact for that buyer. And so as a good, expert asking questions, hey, how are you doing on your loan? What's that like right now? How is your cash flow? How might it be affected should interest rates do change? As you're mirroring, as you're labeling, as you're going into the conversation, it naturally flows. But you also might tell a story. A story can also help open people's minds to what's actually happening in the marketplace. So you might say, hey, for example, I've got a client I'm working with, and his particular interest rate is set to adjust in a couple of years. But the really neat part about it is he's looking at selling right now because it's actually his advantage to allow someone to assume his loan. And you just kind of be quiet. And there's a thing called dynamic silence where you let that kind of sink in, right? Especially if you feel like you made a good point, it's more important to let that sink in and let them just think about what that means for them, and give them a chance to think about what it could mean for them. Sometimes they don't even know until you're in the conversation. Again, back to the knee surgeon, when I get my ACLs for both knees done, I was playing basketball in college, blew one out. And I went there and I didn't know what I didn't know until he started asking me the questions, and he started to mirror and really label and open up what happened, how it happened, or what did I hear? Did my knee pop? Did I feel the pop, right? What was the pain like on a scale of 1 to 10? And that might be the question, Brent, right, to ask them to see if they're serious. So Brent, if I'm sensing that perhaps either they're not as serious or you're not quite sure how serious they are, what will be a question to try to gauge that, Brent?
Yeah. So Brett, on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being you don't want to sell at all, 10 being highly motivated, how motivated are you to exit this property at this point?
I'm pretty serious, Brent. I mean, this marketplace has me a little bit nervous as far as where things are going, but I'm also have this comfort level of, I've got my property here and the rents are being collected and I'm still 100% occupied. But I'm in my 60s now, Brent. I got to be honest, and it just seems like this thing could change, and I don't necessarily want to wait around for another market cycle. Yeah. So on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you feel like you land? I would say about a 7 at this point, but I about a 7. 7. Yeah, 7, because again, like I was saying before, I have some concerns that things could change, and I have this interest rate now that we're talking about this interest rate more, and you're bringing that up. That's something to really consider, because my cash flow, if my interest rate's going to double, it could really drop, and I'm really dependent upon this income. And this is my retirement. I mean, this is everything I put into this, and I don't want my cash flow to drop in half. So I'd say about a 7, but I'm still not really clear on the exit plan. Yeah. So it sounds like you're pretty concerned about your cash flow. This is your retirement, but you're just not sure where to go with the money. That's right. Yeah. Okay. You want me to keep going? No, that's good. Pierce, any thoughts on that? You see that on a scale? So I want you to just walk through that scenario when you're it could be halfway through the meeting. You could be a certain part of the meeting, and you might just ask the question. What's the question to gauge how serious they are? On a scale from 1 to 10, how serious are you? Yeah, and you might, yeah, exactly. Hey, on a scale of 1 to 10.
I think it depends on the conversation though, too,
Yeah.
Because it could definitely, like, if you just randomly like drop that, it's gonna be, but if he's given signs or hints or, dropping any sort of thing like that, right? You gotta have emotional intelligence to read the room, and you gotta pick the right words to mirror and label, like because if you would have said like, on a scale from 1 to 10, and you were going on, oh, I need this, and I have kids and all this kind of stuff, right? There's a few different ways you can take that conversation. So when you mirror, you get actually the power to direct the conversation. So that's super important too. So it's just kind of like, where do you want to go? And if you're trying to uncover those pain points, you really got to mirror where you think the pain points could be.
Yeah, exactly. So as you mirror and as you label, you're naturally going to build some rapport and you're going to build some trust. Okay. And the way that Chris Voss puts it is that mirroring and labeling is the most durable and really effective and efficient way to build trust and rapport. So you might have a couple mirrors and then you might label. You might even do a couple mirrors, label, and follow it up with another mirror after. But he says, here's the key thing, right? Make sure when you label, you let the label sink in. You're not just taking it all of the momentum away, or all of the, I don't know, momentum is the right word. All of the value that you just helped, maybe clarify for somebody, because sometimes people don't necessarily know or even see the emotion behind what they're doing, why they're doing it, right? So as you're working through them with these things, you're uncovering, and it's almost like you're an offensive coordinator looking at the entire field, and you can see what play is going to happen next. But they're the quarterback; they're right there, right? And so you're saying like, "Hey, it seems like, it feels like, it sounds like these are your concerns." And also, it seems like, it sounds like, it feels like these are your desires. And you might even ask a question like, how concerned are you about the interest rate that's adjusting? Or how concerned are you about that the market is shifting, right? These are some, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being serious, that if your interest rate were to adjust tomorrow and your cash flow drops in half, how much is that going to affect your retirement? And perhaps on a scale of 1 to 10, at that point, now how much more likely are you to sell? And that might move into another piece, which is called the conditional close. And this is going to determine whether a proposal is warranted. So Brent, how does that go? If now that I say, I'm pretty serious, Brent, I'm 7, 8, or 9. I'm not quite certain on some of these things, and how would you transition that to see if a proposal is warranted?
Yeah. So label mirror, do all that. Sounds like if you could just figure out a way where to go with the money that provides as much, if not more, cash flow, more safety, and keep your depreciation schedule, or maybe renew it. If we could find that to your satisfaction, would you be willing to, is there any reason why you wouldn't exclusively use me to list the property?
Yeah, if you could find that, I think to my satisfaction, absolutely. If you can find me that up leg or find me that exit plan that does that, no, there's no reason that I wouldn't do it. Here's one little adjustment though. You're proposing, right? You're proposing, right? So so if you don't want to make it, because here's the thing, like, you're kind of pigeonholing yourself into a small corner a little bit there. So and you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So the way you adjust that is you say, hey, look, it sounds like, it feels like, it seems like these are your desires. These are your challenges. That's right, Brent. Look, I'd like to go back and put together a proposal that addresses 1, 2, 3, your desires, 1, 2, 3, your pain points. And assuming we can agree on price and terms, then I can show you in our proposal a plan to help you achieve these things and avoid these things. Is there any reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list the property for you, sell, and help you achieve these goals? Because that proposal now, as you go back and you study his information, you study his income and expenses, you study his loan, you find out if it's assumable. I mean, these are all the things you don't quite know yet, right? We're doing hypotheticals. And then it's like you're doing the MRI, and then you're going to come back and say, here's our strengths, here's our weaknesses, here's our opportunities, here's our threats, here's our rents that are in the area going on rent survey, here's our sales comps. Essentially, this is a Rubik's Cube, and you're going to be moving it around for at least a week, maybe a week and a half to go through it. And you're going to come back and present this proposal. And by presenting that, You're going to say, here's the conclusions I came back with. Here's the rough value of the property. And here's if we adjust 1, 2, and 3, and how if we adjust A, B, and C, how we could achieve that. And this is when you're going to ask for the business, right? So this is the second listing appointment. There was the first listing appointment was where you're assessing desires and needs and wants. The second one is actually presenting the proposal as a solution to their problem, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions there? Thoughts on that, Brent?
No, that's right on.
Okay. All right. So we've got to make commitments this week, right? Commitments to the one big thing. If we were to implement the habit that's going to help change our business and help more clients, because I believe we've all been given these gifts, and it's our responsibility and stewardship to use these gifts to be a blessing and help to others, help as many people as we can. But if we're not maximizing the potential of these gifts, and if we're not taking action on these gifts, we're not getting our reps in, guess what? It's going to be minimal people that we help, right? And our business is going to be tough to scale. So we've got to do these things. So I'm going to start with Brent. Brent, what's the one thing you think, and maybe you're already doing it, right? But maybe you can organize that or double down on that if you were to implement this week that you want to commit to, that's going to make the biggest change for your business and your clients.
Okay. Yeah. Good question for this week, Monday morning. So for this week, so I'm really working on a software program that analyzes real estate deals. And so making it so it's not just for me, but it can be easily bought and purchased on a monthly subscription. So if I could figure out that this week, that would be huge.
Okay. And so how you can monetize it so you can scale it. So how do you take it, monetize the scale? That's the specific thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you, that sounds great. I love it. And there's no wrong answer here, right? I mean, there might be, if I think it's wrong, I might point it out, or I might ask a question about it, or I might mirror, might label, right? So it sounds like, it seems like if you could get this software, figure out a way to monetize it, right, in an efficient way,
yeah,
that it can help a lot of potential clients and even brokers that want to do deals.
100%. Yeah. And provide passive income to me,
yeah,
and help them. And especially even these resimercial kind of guys who don't really know how to run the numbers. It kind of does it all for them. It's an easy way so they can get it right.
Perfect. What's the one thing that needs to get done this week to move this thing forward? Like I make it the bigger concept, but like what tactically are you saying here?
I need to figure out how to embed that into a website.
Okay, so you want to hire the who, not be the how, which I think you probably have that right. Have you got the who yet?
I don't know how to do this.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
Okay,
I can't do that. Yeah, I gotta hire it.
You gotta find the who, right? And hire the who.
Yeah.
So do you maybe want to interview 3 people this week? Make it really tactical?
Yeah, that sounds good. Let me write that down.
Okay. So in the next 7 days, Brent is committed to interviewing 3 web designers to help him specifically embed it into a website so that he can monetize this, so that he can get passive. So that's pretty good, right? So boom. So that's what's called a rock, right? Like it could be a 30-day walk. Maybe 7 days is too short, right? But it could be a 30-day like rock. And a rock is basically I commit to in the next X amount of days to accomplish Y or to do Y or X. And that is like you write down 2 or 3 rocks or wigs. Wigs are wildly important goals. And this is right out of Don Winter's book.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably other people's book too, but it's Building Elite Organization, right? And reading this.
You like that book?
Oh, it's amazing book. And yes, okay. So that I don't know exactly where it's at, but it's in the book here. And so you want to write those down. Okay, Pierce, you're up now. So what's the one thing if you were to start this week that you think is going to make the biggest impact on your business helping clients?
I need to increase my conversations to a minimum of 25 conversations a day.
Okay, 25 conversations per day. So what specifically do you think you can do this week to help increase that?
Yeah, I need to hit like at least 150 cold calls a day.
Excellent. And what time specifically do you think is the best time to do that? What time do you commit to?
Well, typically I'll go from like 9:45 to 12, like with dial for dollars. And then take a little break and then try and hit it again in the afternoon and some follow-ups and all that kind of stuff. So got lists, I got Vulcan 7, I got it all, man. I just got to sit here and pound the phones.
There it is. By the way, for those who don't know who Deferred Sales is, it's part of eXp Mastery and our greater eXp family team, where we all get together on like Zooms like this, but we make calls and we go on mute and we report back our wins. That's kind of like being in the cubes again or being in the office. And we do it at specific times. Maybe do it on Saturdays too. And it's a cool way to build momentum and get some encouragement just being solo in a room. Excellent, Pierce. So we'll see if you hit that commitment by next week. And we also got our other RV mobile home park specialist, Sierra, on the line. Sierra, I see you're on mute, no camera, but if you are hanging out with us, would love to hear how your week has gone and do a little role play if you're up for the challenge. And Sierra is out of Denver, Colorado, and she does mobile home park and RV commercial real estate sales. Sierra, what's happening?
Hey, Brett, how are you doing? I'm a little under the weather, so I don't have my camera on today.
That's fine. No worries. We'll wait for you next week. So what's the one thing this week, Sierra, if you were to accomplish, do you feel like it would be the number one way to move your business forward?
Yeah, similar to the last one, I've got kind of a set call list that I'm reaching out to. I finally finished databasing over here in my home state, so I'm going to start reaching out to local owners and try to set up some in-person meetings. I've got similar numbers. I'm trying to hit 150 calls this week with the goal of setting up meetings with at least 25 people. So lots of phone reps, lots of good conversations, like what you talk about, getting set up for that first in-person meeting to get the conversation going.
Excellent. And then as far as time, are you doing time blocking to set specific times to make just cold calls and just focus on that exclusive?
I am. Yeah. I've actually started booking myself in my calendar for 2.5 hours per day. And I just sit down and turn off the phone and shut the door and just go after it.
Love it. That's a great way to do it. So specific time blocks. Excellent. And specific times and certain number of calls to a certain number of meetings equal to a certain number of proposals, which lead to a certain number of listings, right? As well, I also encourage everybody, if you haven't already, create a YouTube channel and document your journey, right, along the way. The good, the bad, all of the above, right? And also review like deals that have closed. You can even review what you hear from clients about what's going on with rents or what's going on with sales, what's going on with interest rates, talking about assumable loans. All of these types of things are, once you capture that wisdom and knowledge and insight from different clients or other brokers you're talking with, it's also a great way to A, document your journey, but also B, create some content that can be very helpful for somebody else. This is why we're live streaming this right now on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and a few others. And if you want to watch this, or if you're hearing this, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolution.com. Everything will also be eventually on expmastery.com. Once that is launched, by the way, very excited about that. That being said, we are up against the 30 minutes here. Any questions or thoughts from Brent or Pierce or Sierra? I'll start with Pierce. Go.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to just dive in really quick is the cap rate that we kind of talked about. Are you including mortgage in your cap rate calculations?
No, the cap rate is basically your income minus expenses, not including debt service, right? Your debt service that would be included for the cash on cash return. So right. Income minus expenses, but your cap rate, another way to think about it is your unleveraged rate of return. So yep. If I were to buy something all cash, so what you're asking is cash on cash return, which is actually my favorite out of all of them. Does that answer the question, Pierce?
Yeah, I just wanted to verify that because that was what I thought, and I thought there was that you said that if someone has an adjustable rate mortgage, it would affect their cap rate. We wanted to verify that that's debt. So
yeah,
it would affect their cash on cash, not their cap rate, though.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. We're on the same page.
So NOI divided by price equals cap rate. It's your unleveraged rate of return. Your NOI is going to be determined obviously by your net revenue, right? Your net rents. Any additional, like, if it's a multifamily property, it could be RUBS, it could be pet rent, it could be parking, all revenue, right? Then you're going to take a vacancy factor, somewhere between probably 3% and 5%, depending on where you're at. And then you're going to take all of that. You're going to minus your new property taxes, right, Brent? You're going to minus your insurance. You're going to minus your repairs and maintenance, your estimated reserves as well. Brent, what do we like to use for reserves?
$300. Well, 250, 300 per unit per year.
Mm-hmm. And then what about utilities? Where are we getting the utilities from?
The bills.
That's just fixed. That's just a number, right? And then how about repairs and maintenance? If we're not quite sure, we're getting them from there, right? But we also want to be aware of industry standards, because guess what? A bank's going to underwrite to certain numbers per unit per year, right? As well, kind of like insurance and some kind of like reserves, but they also do that with insurance and repairs and maintenance. So be aware of that. And then what about management fee, Brent? What if I self-manage? Does that mean I can just take it out of my NOI?
Nope, because a buyer is going to get management. So when you go to do your proposal, everyone's going to get, everyone's going to get management. So you got to factor in 5, 6, 4, depends how many units. The more units, the smaller the management fee. The less units, the higher the management fee.
Yeah, because someone's paying the manager, right? Either they're paying themselves or they're not paying anybody. They're not taking any revenue, or someone's got to hire somebody, right? So you're gonna have new property taxes. You're gonna make sure you have your management fee. You're gonna make sure you have your insurance properly insured. You want to make sure you have the reserves, repairs and maintenance. So those are some of the things. You're gonna have legal, you can have some legal, some eviction stuff. You could have some miscellaneous fees. So these are the things that you want to look at when underwriting and by the way, one of the best ways to do that is to look at current deals that are online. So if you go to current deals and look at their underwriting, on market comps, right? Sold comps, past proposals, and you can kind of gauge and get a feel for that, right? You might find some clues about what's happening there and why yours might be a little bit different or a little bit more advantageous. Okay. So these are the things to be aware of. But the most important thing is to figure out where the rents are currently and where they can be and what it's going to take to cost to get there. Because that creates what's called your pro forma. And your pro forma is important because that's the upside of the deal. And or what's called loss to lease. Brent, what's loss to lease?
Loss to lease is when you're basically renting it below market rent. That difference is loss to lease. Or you got a bunch of vacancies, but that's below the vacancy rate for the city.
Yep. So let's say it's averaging $1,500 and but is the market, right? But you're only averaging 1,000. So on average, it's $500 loss to lease. Not even doing renovations, just turning the unit. So it's not saying you have to go in and do a bunch of like upgrades. It's literally just saying like if that unit just turned over and we maybe paint the walls clean, maybe just redo the carpet or tear it out and do regular flooring. I mean, at least $500. That's just simple loss to lease. And then there's what's called pro forma. Pro forma would be, now pro forma you can define in a couple ways. Like you say, well, pro forma is that loss to lease. Yeah, you could maybe do that. I like to define pro forma as simply the opportunity now, if you did the work, right? Whereas loss to lease is just let the unit turn over and do simple stuff. You don't have to do anything really. That's going to do it. So that's important too. So loss to lease, and then you're going to have pro forma. You might even have an advanced pro forma with really luxury finishes versus just a regular pro forma. These are the things to consider, but that's why it's a broker opinion of value. And you have an opportunity to make sure you're highlighting those details. You also want to do what's, the rent per square foot, right? How big are the units? Obviously, if it's 2-bedroom units, that's really good. Ones and studios aren't as popular, but 2s and 3s tend to be pretty good. 2 is probably the best. Townhomes are really nice. Is it 80s constructions? Is it pitched roofs? Does it have wall ACs versus central ACs? Is the ACs on the roof or is it on the ground? Does it have central heat and air? Does it have a raised foundation? Does it have, all these little clues that you're going to be picking up on that you want to be aware of so that when you're walking into a listing presentation, you can really speak to the value of that particular property. So you're going to want to have to walk the property, ideally tour a unit if you can. You're going to want to have to walk the rent comps. You might even go in and speak with some managers in the area, right? And propose, be like a tenant, right? Like, hey, I'm a tenant just looking around. What do you like most about the area? What do you like about the schools? What do you like about, the shopping and the walkability, and what don't you like? What are some of the challenges? What are the things, how is parking, and you might even ask about the property, but not telling them what's going on. Like, hey, what about that property over there? And they might give you some insights on some certain things. And so you want to become like a private detective, if you will, right? And you want to figure out all the nooks and crannies of the deal so that you can come in. And the moment you start adding value is when, Brent? When's the moment you start adding value?
When you start solving problems.
True. And in order to solve problems, what do you need to know about the property and the client?
You just need to know about them.
As much or
Yeah, as
More.
much more. When you know more about the market than they do, yeah, you become the expert.
yeah. So so if I'm right here, if I'm not adding value because I don't know as much about the market or their property or the sales comps or the rent comps, but the moment I actually know more about the market, sales comps, rent comps, adjustable rate mortgages, 1031 exit plans, deferred sales trust exit plans, all of a sudden I start adding value once I go above that line. But if I'm either even or below, guess what I'm doing? I'm probably wasting their time, right?
Yeah, they don't need you.
They don't need you, right? And they have other brokers calling them. So you want to come with something that's of value, a rent comp, a sales comp, a lender, an insurance agent who can help them, a new management company. I got a call from a potential client. He's like, hey, who do you have for management? It's like, well, let me give you these two. Let me give you these people right here. Give them a call, right? And so I'm helping them solve the problem. You're that resource and you're that go-to person. And then yes, as you get a chance to propose and sit down with them, then you can start to provide some solutions for their problems. So all right. So that being said, Sierra, any questions from you before we let you go?
No questions. This is great. Thanks, Brett.
Yep.
I have one more if we have another.
Sure.
So would you recommend before you start calling these people that like you dive into their deal already?
Yeah, as much as you can. Yeah, as much as you can. It might not be perfect, but I mean, as you're driving properties, as you're driving areas, as you're seeing for rent signs, as you're seeing for sale signs, like you got to become obsessed with knowing more about their property in the area than anybody else. And the more you do, the more knowledge you have, the more power you have to solve their problem. Right. So it becomes the honey badger mentality of like, how can I get and know and understand all of this? That's part of why I think it's cool to make vlog videos of the areas, right? And walk properties and tour so you can document your journey. So A, you can remember, B, people can see that, right? And C, they'll get value from that as you're uncovering little things, right? Oh, look at this property is being built over here. I don't know what's going on over here. It looks like, all right, let's go figure it out. All right, let me report back. They're building a 200-unit apartment complex. It's an affordable housing complex. You have to make X amount for the medium rent to even medium area to even qualify to rent there. This could affect this, or this could not affect this. Or they're building these luxury homes, or they're building the Kings, Sacramento Kings Arena downtown. That was a huge thing years ago when they built that. I mean, all these little things that you can have is great. Now, does that mean you stop calling just because you don't know about it? No, you still call, right? And then the more people you call, it begets more calls and more knowledge because you're going to ask them about what's going on and what they're seeing. And you're looking for ways to add value, and you're also bringing an interest generator. Real quick, what's an interest generator, Brent?
Yeah, so interest generators is something that they may not be aware of, or it's like proprietary or unique information. So in my case, I live in Chico. So Chico State University has a ton of renters, 20,000 renters that are in that market. The attendance is going down. So I could call owners and say, hey, Chico State decreased 8% year over year. I've been watching this like a hawk. Does that concern you at all? Oh, what? Chico State's decreasing? Yeah, I actually did a whole podcast on the decrease of Chico State. I have a website too. I have a whole presentation. Would you be interested in looking at it? Boom, interest generator, bada bing, bada boom. Like they're like, yeah. I think there's some information if you own, you need to know this stuff. So whatever you can find about new development coming over here, about new laws coming down, statewide rent control, this and that, and the next thing, whatever it is, using that to your advantage.
That's so valuable, right? And invite them to something, invite them to an event, invite them to read an ebook, invite them to watch a podcast, invite them to the next step in the journey to understanding A, where you're coming from, B, what their challenges might be, and C, how it can be solved, right? Have something to invite them to, because it's not always going to be, yeah, come meet with me. I'm ready to talk now, right? When they're ready to meet, and that's always how people are serious because they're ready to invest their time, their energy, and their money into something. If they're going to meet with you, that means, hey, there's probably at least, you're at least probably at 5 out of 10 about selling if they're going to sit down and meet with you, probably, right? But if they're not ready to meet with you, invite them to watch a podcast. Invite them to, you're going to send them an ebook. And you're going to follow up with a valuable study about the decreasing enrollment and how that could affect rents. Like whatever it might be, have that action item of value to send to them on the follow up. Hey, would you mind? Hey, I know you're not ready to meet yet. Totally get it. Respect that. That's cool. I just recently did a podcast. I recently just did a YouTube video. I just recently did an analysis. I have this new cash flow tool here. I'd like to send it to you. I think you're going to find it of value. No strings attached. It's just, I think it'd be a cool thing that you're going to like. Would it be all right if I send it to you? Great. I'm emailing it to you. Hey, I can text it to you too. By the way, text is really nice on this part because people get lost in emails. Is it okay if I text it to you? Yeah, text it to me. Great. Hey, with your permission, may I follow up like a pro? Call you in maybe, if you feel like 3 months, a couple months, call you in a couple weeks and hear about what you thought about the study. Whatever feels kind of natural there. You don't want to make it too pushy too fast, but whatever feels kind of natural. Great. Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you so much for your time. Get off the phone. That's
so
it.
With that, if my goal is to make 150 calls per day, I mean, like how much time and energy and effort am I putting into diving into each one of their deals? And like, I'm basically asking, hey, hypothetically, if you got an offer, would you be opposed to reviewing it? That's kind of but I'm getting a lot of people are like, well, what's the offer? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. So when you come, I might do a what's it called? A split test, right? Because when you say if you got an offer, it makes it sound like you're an investor and you're going to be buying it, right? Versus a broker who wants to help them solve the problem and achieve their goals. And sometimes their number one goal is just to get a high price and get it sold right away, and you can cut to the chase. I might phrase it like this. Hey, I'm just curious. Are you in the market to buy or sell any property right now? And I'm calling on 123 Main Street, your specific property. I was just by it yesterday. In fact, I just sold a property down the street, or just reviewed a sales comp down the street. I just did, a whole rent study on that. And I'm just curious, if you got an offer, if a broker were to, list the property, I don't even know if I would say if you got an offer. I would just say, would you be in the market? Would you be open to buying or selling at this time? And they might say yes or no at that point. And you might even save that for midway through the conversation if you feel like it's not going anywhere. But Brent, what are your takes on that? I mean, when you hear that, what do you think?
Yeah, so I would try to start off with something of value, like I'm saying, just like thinking through, if you're calling residential people, like, hi, I just saw that 1234 Main Street, your 1235 Main Street just sold. It was a great sale, all this stuff. I don't know if you're aware of the details of that, but I wanted to see if you were interested in selling, whatever it is, or interest rates have been moving up. Adjustable rates. I'm working with a lot of clients. The rates have been going up. It's going to cause an issue in the market down the road. It hasn't happened yet. Does that concern you at all? Whatever the thing is, I like to bring some kind of value on that cold call to introduce them. And I work super hard to have things of value or important information to make them aware of. I mean, and I try and get that down cold so that when I call them, they're like, yeah. And I've gotten a ton of like, hey, can I get your email? I'll send this over to you. I think you're really going to find it good. And it really is good. And then they're like, yeah, here's my email. Boom, to the database, to the follow-up, to the, they're in there at that point.
So if you have a client, like I have a buyer, and this buyer failed his 1031, and now they're looking for a property inside an opportunity zone in Southern California somewhere. Like that's the reason why I'm calling these people. They want like industrial property or whatever in an opportunity zone. So if it's not like, hey, would you be, open to an offer? Like, how would you position that for them to generate interest in, or at least just continue? Like, all I'm trying to figure out is like, are you even open to having that conversation?
So here's a challenge. If you come in like that and they just say, no, I'm not, then it kind of ends the conversation, right?
Yeah.
If you bring something that's either new information or interesting information or valuable information, something that's actionable, that's timely, that perhaps they didn't know about, they probably get 30 calls a week from brokers saying, would you sell your property, right? So you might even say that, hey, I know you probably get 30 calls a week about would you sell your property? And this is legitimate. I am working with a 1031 buyer. They're running out of time. Okay. And he just sold this, and this, and it's sounds good, Brent. He sold this, and this, and he's ready to transact. But I'm just curious if something just sold down the street, adjustable rate mortgages are going on. You can split test it. I mean, you might be, if you're getting tons of meetings through that, then great. Then it's sweet. But, you should start to track. If I made 100 calls, how many calls does it take for me to get 3 meetings? Right. And if you made 100 calls just like that and you got 0 meetings, okay, well, you make 200 calls like that, 300 calls like that, 500 calls like that. Now, if you approach it, okay, now I'm going to approach it to not, if it was an offer, would you sell it? You might approach it like, hey, with adjustable rate mortgages going on, we're working with sellers to see what their cash flow is going to be like in a couple of years. Should adjust. I'm just curious, would you be open to, buying or selling if you knew your interest rate were going to double? And give them a deal story, give them something real. Say, one of my business partners is working with a client right now, and their rate's going from 3.5 to 6.5 in 2 years. And so they're looking as an opportunity to sell while a buyer can assume the interest rate versus waiting for the cash flow to drop in half. And just be quiet, right? Use story. Right? Story is powerful because it opens up emotions and it opens up the mind to a new way of thinking versus just, oh, he's logically, trying to persuade me to sell. No, I'm going to give you an actual story that will tell this for me. Right. And wow, I didn't think about that, Pierce. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And you say, what is your mortgage like? That's a good question. I haven't looked at that. And you say, looked at that? And he goes, yeah, it's been a while. I talked to my guy a couple of years ago, and you just start to mirror and label at that point, to get more and more information, and then look for windows of opportunity to meet with them, right? To go through it in detail with them. That makes sense?
So are there like 2 or 3, is the bridge debt concept kind of, I know that's a big one right now. There's a lot of bridge debt that's kind of coming due that a lot of people are kind of like, I don't know, getting hammered on because things have skyrocketed and so on and so forth. But is the adjustable rates a big thing going on right now?
Yeah, it's huge. It's like the number one thing. I mean, interest rates have doubled, right? Basically in the last 7 months. And they know that inflation is out of control. Now it looks like it's maybe tempered down a little bit. So you're going to say that, hey, interest rates have been out of control. Inflation has gone way up. I know you're very aware of this. And as a part of it, though, we actually see an opportunity for owners who've locked in low rate financing a couple of years ago. In fact, we're working with the seller right now. It's exactly what they're doing. We're going to sell and double their cash flow, help them exit without using a 1031 exchange. You're dropping in little interest generators, right? And I'm just curious, would you be in the market to buy or sell anything at this time? You can still use your question, right? I wouldn't say the offer per se. I would just say, I'm curious, are you in the market to buy or sell anything at this time? But I would start with an interest generator first. And would you be opposed to buying or selling anything at this time, given the marketplace conditions? But give them some kind of substance of what's going on in the marketplace. Give them a story that helps them to kind of grab their attention about, that guy's thinking about it. Maybe I should too.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I got to rewrite that script.
All right. Hey, everybody, if you want to learn more about us, you go to expmastery.com. You can also go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We're experts in all things 1031 exchanges, all things multifamily syndication, all things multifamily brokerage, and also the Deferred Sales Trust, ways to exit not using a 1031. So you can help your clients, friends, and family, never feel trapped by capital gains tax ever again. Works for primary homes, works for businesses, cryptocurrency. And it's just a great way to, honestly, most of the time, double your cash flow and also lower your risk. So you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more about that. And check out our team too, eXp Mastery team. If you want to join us, we'd love to join you. And if you're an owner out there listening to us, hey, check us out. We'd love an opportunity to see if we can help solve some of your problems in a whole new way that a lot of brokers don't know how to do. And you can reach out to us as well. Pierce, York, where can people find you if they want to find you?
Living in Newport Beach, California, YouTube channel, and kingdomluxuryrealty.com.
Sierra, if you're still there, where can people find you?
Thanks, Brett. I'm Sierra Sal on Instagram, and I'm at parkplacepropertyadvisors.com.
Awesome. Hey, everyone, have a great week. Remember your commitments. Come back next week. Report that you nailed it, okay?
Thanks, Brett. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody.